Hi friends, it's Azalea from Greengirlstudios. I'm going live by myself this evening. I don't have a sale or any lots prepared, but I'm going to do some painting and my favorite game of show and tell, showing you guys what I've been getting up to, you know, when I've been just hanging out, not having to do a lot, just hanging out in the house. I have been filling orders and emailing customers and sending invoices, but mostly I've been crocheting like crazy. I made a whole hat. I've been working on a sweater. I've made the front panel of the sweater. That's almost done, and I've started on the sleeve. And I've made a bunch of those tiny crochet hearts. I've been doing amigurumi. I've been going crazy with the crochet. I've been putting on shows and music and just working on it all day long. Um, so I haven't been painting much lately or doing any sort of like illustrating. So this is going to be nice. Hi, Lauren. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm excited to get into it for this, fun little New Year's Eve party. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys what I've been working on real quick because I love show and tell. And then I'm going to show you some of my paintings that I've done in my fancy little sketchbook. And then I'm going to just do some little doodle illustrations. I don't have anything in mind. I'm just going to wing it. So this first thing that I've been working on, I've been making a pink sweater, of course, because I've been into pink for a long time. And it's going to have like a big black heart in the center and a black collar, and it's going to be kind of one of those drop shoulders. I don't know. I've never made a sweater before. I've been going crazy with it. And, I've been working on the sleeve cuff here. That's going to be cute. It's supposed to be baggy like that. I'm very excited to get that done, even though it's taking forever. And then also, I've been working on a new embroidery. I haven't done a new embroidery, like the ones that I've done that were full-on acrylic paintings and like heavily detailed flowers. I haven't done one of those kinds in like over a year. So I've been working on this. It's another Robert Smith drawing, of course, and he's there. I'm still working on the flowers and the branches and his little necklace of beads. He's got a little Renaissance painting style halo behind him. It's been pretty fun to work on. It's been a while since I've done something like this, and I'm remembering all of my techniques for flower making. And my friends have been coming to visit me a lot lately. My friend Jason was here today and yesterday, and it's been fun. We've been going out for boba and crafting and watching some of my favorite movies, and that has been sick. Oh, my mom says, Mom, Max, and everyone is watching. Hello. Oh, thank you, Nilda. I made my hat. It's a little pixie hat. This part's cotton. Took a long time because it's a very tight stitch, just single crochet all the way around with a wire brim. And this little shell detail I have here is wool. I'm very happy with how it came out. I've never made a hat like this before either. So I'm very pleased with my crochet endeavors lately. Next step is picking up knitting. And that's exciting too, but I don't have any knitting needles with me, so I'll figure that out another time. I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera and go through my sketchbook, just a couple drawings, and then we can do some sketching. Because my mom, she usually does like gouache and watercolor paintings. I might do a little bit of that. I have my setup right here. I might even do a little bit of digital too, but I haven't figured out how to do the screen sharing, so I didn't want the light glaring on the screen while I'm filming it. So I'm going to flip it now. But while I'm doing this, how about everybody go around and talk about what you're excited about for the new year? Because I'm excited. 2023 has been kind of a rough one, but I feel grateful and blessed. I'm very excited for my family to come home and to watch some murder mysteries with my mom. All right, here we go. Let's flip it. If I can figure out how to find it. Here we go. Yes. All right. Here is my magical sketchbook. I have had this for probably 2 years now. I got it in the spring of whatever year that was, 2 years ago, at the Viking Fest. My dad got it for me. It's very fancy, and it has really nice paper, too. I really like to paint in this because the paper is not super thick and textured like watercolor paper, but it is absorbent. The paint itself doesn't bleed through, and I like that. So here's one of my paintings I did a little while ago. This is of Keats. I've had a fixation with him and his poetry and the Bright Star movie for like years now. And, this is a little gouache painting I did of him. The Keats from the movie, because I haven't really found a very good reference to paint him how he actually looked. Then I have I also use my sketchbook. I do full-size paintings in my sketchbook, like full gouache and watercolor, but I also do painting sketches of things that I want to paint on, like a wood board or a canvas. So these are just some sketches. Here are some ideas, some explanations of my painting, just lots of doodles, ideas for names of the painting, and I've already started this one. I did this sketch and inked it, and then I already started it on in acrylic on a wooden board in the studio. Oh yeah, I forgot I have some bookmarks here. Let's see what's the first one. This is The Gentleman with the Thistledown Hair from Susanna Clark's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. He's probably one of my favorite characters in that story. He's the bad guy, but he's also so cool. Look at his talons. Oh, thank you, Sherry. She says, your pixie hat is adorable, and you're a great artist, Azalea. Thank you. Julie says, hi, Azalea. Happy New Year. Hello, Julie. Hi. Hi, June. Thank you guys for joining me. Very excited. Look, I think I might have a bookmark somewhere else. I thought I did. Whatever. Okay, this was a swamp painting I was doing in Florida. This was fun to start. We were walking in the forest, my mom and I. We were walking in this like nature reserve area, and there were really nice swamp scenery. This is in gouache. I haven't detailed it yet. Here's a page that I went over in my new ink that Mom got for me for Christmas. And here's our fresh page to start a new drawing. And lately, I've been thinking about one of my old comics that I did a couple years ago of these dryad creatures. And those, I don't know where I came up with the idea for them, probably in a dream, and then ended up drawing them later. But they're supposed to be like slightly bigger than humans. And, you know, they don't really have a lot of facial features except for their glowing white eyes, and like they have antlers that look like branches. I really enjoy drawing those creatures. When I did a comic on those, that was one of my most successful Strange Little Things comics I've ever posted, because it got almost 2,000 likes, which, you know, to some people is not, you know, great, but to me it's big because I don't usually get that kind of attention on the internet. So I usually just start out with a regular little oval shape. I don't put a lot of thought into it. And I like to just, I don't know, improvise with the horn shape. I don't ever use reference from like actual deer antlers. I just kind of mess around with shapes like tree branches. And then I try to make it symmetrical on the other side, of course, but it doesn't have to be. It'll still be cool looking. I usually give them eyes like this. Like all of my other characters in my Strange Little Things comics, they've got downturned, rounded eyes, big on their face. I don't know why I like that style so much. I just think it's so cute. Simple creatures. Simple to draw. Yeah, I want to make a mask of these. That would be super cool. They usually have a wooden texture, so I usually do something like this. Give them a wood grain. Just little doodles. Just lines going down, loops and curves. This would be super fun to make like a foam mask out of. I've been playing with my foam masks here at home lately, making videos in the yard, doing stop motion of me creeping around in the forest. Kind of weird. Oh, Kalite says, love all the rich creative layers of your artistic expression. Thank you. I usually go in with a layer of watercolor first, and maybe some, like, if I want it to be a stronger color, I'll go in with gouache. And if I don't want it to bleed in through, like when I'm watercoloring on top, I'll put clear gesso over it, and it kind of seals in the layer. And then I can sketch and paint on top of it. And that's how I did my John Keats drawing. I did a background layer of that gray and blue, and then I sealed it up with some clear gesso, and then I sketched him in the flowers in and painted that. And then sometimes I seal it in, but most of the time I don't. I've had better experiences with painting in gouache and watercolor than acrylic. Both are cool, you know, fun to use, but gesso or gouache and watercolor is easier for me. Yes. So he's got his little tree branches. Simple face, simple eyes. I went to an antique barn today and me and my friend Jason found a lot of cool little things in there, and that kind of inspired me to draw something a little bit spooky, because that whole place is spooky. Oh, hi, Clem. He says, "Hi, Azalea, Happy New Year." Thank you. It doesn't even feel like it. It feels like just any regular day. I went and got boba today, and that was good. And then I came home and got right back to the crochet again. I've always loved drawing spooky little forest creatures, especially ever since I saw the movie Spiderwick and that awesome book that he had with all the creatures in it. I love that so hard, especially like all the Spiderwick books, the illustrations from those where they're little swamp creatures and giants and brownies and boglins. I love that. My love of drawing mermaids and magical creatures, I mostly probably get that from my mom. Now I'm drawing his hand. I have a kneaded eraser here. I think this is the best way to erase. It's the best kind of eraser. Rubber erasers I find are pretty good too when you don't have anything else, like those like smooth white ones, but these don't leave any sort of like weird rubbery bits on your paper. It'll remove your sketching lines without all that extra junk, because I find that when you have all that junk on there, you want to sweep it off with your hand and then you've smudged your drawing. But I guess, everybody likes a different tool. This one is my favorite, especially when I'm erasing sketches after inking them. Oh, my dad says, "This is awesome. I miss you so much." I miss you too. I've been thinking lately that I wish I went, because being in the house most of the time by myself has been spooky, and I miss my family. So, you know. But my friend Jason has been so nice. He's been coming over and hanging out with me almost every day. Hmm. I didn't really plan this out or anything, so this is just some goofy sketch. But you know what? These guys would make for really cool artwork. It kind of reminds me of our friend in town who's an artist, Brian Serway. I have a bunch of his prints up on my wall, and I love his style. It's very goth. All of the creatures have glowing white eyes, and the illustrations are usually mostly black and white, and sometimes he adds a little bit of red in there. And I think that kind of illustration and painting style would suit these pretty well. Now, I think I'm ready to switch gears and look at my embroidery, because I have had this same project um, in progress for almost a year now. I started this. It's been a long time. I did the sketch on Procreate, and I did it just in black and white, just line art. And then I printed out the sheet on an 8.5 by 11, piece. And then I used a light box underneath this piece of cotton and traced the design with a pen onto this. And then after that, I took some acrylic paint and I painted in all of the spots that I wanted to be permanent, except for the background. This was an experiment. I didn't know how well that would work, but the background I did in watercolor. I didn't think it would stay. I thought it would fade or just bleed into his face, but it didn't. It worked out good. These are little bouillon stitch roses that I've been working on. That one's pretty epic. I don't even remember doing that one. That's an old one. That's probably like 30 different little bouillon stitches to make one big rose over his eye. I'm going to paint in the butterfly here. I've never embroidered the butterflies with the human eyes, but maybe I could try. I just usually like to give them so many different color changes in their palette that it would be kind of hard to do it in embroidery. His little rosary is made out of beads. Just strung some beads up there. A little black branch. I haven't decided if I want to put berries on this or flowers. Yeah, whenever I do my flower embroideries, I consult my Victorian Language of Flowers book. And that one has like I don't even know. You can pick different flowers and they'll tell you, the old name for them, the meaning behind it, and what to pair it with for a certain message. So you could send like your secret messages. And I've used that book for making my embroideries. I've used that for making my paper flower crowns. It's one of my favorites. And the illustrations are like in a Victorian style too. Here's my embroidery floss book or box. I have a bunch of different colors in here. My mom's collection is really extensive and really organized, unlike mine. I've got different things all over through here. But you can tell that my favorite colors to use are the reds and the pinks. These barely get touched, those weird rainbow ones. But I was going to use some gold to go around the edges of the black border. And when I'm done, I'm going to glue this onto a background and stretch it like a canvas and put it in a frame on my wall. I've been asked before if I would do custom embroidery work. I said no, straight up, because it's a lot of work, and I've always used this craft as kind of a form of therapy. Whenever I've had some sad times, I will design an embroidery for it. And it doesn't usually directly relate to the issue. I pretty much almost always embroider like Robert Smith. I don't know why he's so much fun to draw and paint. Probably his hair and his eyes. But yeah, I like to draw him. I like to embroider flowers for him. I did one when I was in high school. I did one on my way to Tucson with my mom for the first time in 2021 when he was in his garden. That was a really fun one because that one had like embroidered flowers top to bottom. Like it was thick and dense with stuff. I've had embroideries that are mostly just paint with some flowers here and there, and then that one was like heavy, dense with it was like tapestry levels. Pat asks, "Can you knot a necklace with embroidery floss?" I've never tried to do that. Here's the thickness of my embroidery floss that I use. I have broken embroidery floss before when trying to work with it, like trying to pull a knot through and then it snaps. That hasn't happened that many times, but it has happened. I would not personally trust embroidery floss for making a necklace because I feel like you would pull it just a little too tight and all of those thin little fibers would just like snap. Some things though, I mean, I have embroidered using like this right here. For the beads, I did not string those on with embroidery floss because the edges of the beads are kind of sharp. They're kind of cheaply made. I don't know what kind they are. They feel like plastic, but the edges of the holes are sharp. And I figured if I string that onto like 3 strands of embroidery floss, it's going to snap or get snagged and cut pretty much immediately. So I did use jewelry uh, jewelry line like the thread, probably like some variation of soft flex to string that on. Who else is commenting? June says, "Awesome work. Thank you." Pat says, "You were so great teaching us natural talent. Thank you so much." Carla says, "Hi, Azalea." Hello, Carla. Cherie says, "Cynthia, you've nurtured and taught your daughter well." Thank you. I know that's for my mom, but still thank you. So I haven't decided yet what flowers I'm going to also add to this. I probably at this point should not even bother painting in some of his hair because sometimes I completely just fill it all up with flowers. I try to do the foxgloves. That one's a little bit hard to embroider though. Some people embroider by like, outlining a shape and then filling it in with a satin stitch, but I just love these 3D bouillon stitches, and I try to make my embroideries as 3D as possible. Like there's a bunch of French knots, and I did those with just some scraps I had, scraps of yellow, and I was doing some outline of gold around his halo, little French knots around that too. I could add more of those around at the top because I didn't fill in that gap, but I was absolutely planning to do something interesting in the black border. I haven't decided yet what, but I was inspired by some old medieval style illustrations that I saw in like, I don't know, medieval style books, I guess. Maybe some plants weaving in and out, maybe some like lettering. I don't know. That sounds like a lot of work. I'll probably stick with the plants and outlining. But yeah, if anybody has any ideas for what flowers I should put next, comment them and I'm going to try to embroider them as I go. I have some black 3 strands right here that I separated that I'll probably do right now to do some outlining. And outlining is probably the easiest thing to do because I just use a backstitch. And with black especially, you can't even see it. It's just a line. I'm just going to start with a regular knot. I'm going to do it a couple times, wrap around, and just knot it. Because if it's only 3 strands, I don't want it to pull through the hole that I make with the needle because the needle's kind of thick. And you could see I did a little bit of outlining under his eye and around his nose in that black. That's not paint, that's thread right there. But I did paint his face in watercolor and acrylic so it wouldn't move. Let's see what else people are saying. My mom says, I love the gold. Thank you. Lauren says, vines and paisley. It's a good idea. And fantastical reptiles. Yeah, that would be cool too. If my mom were to design it, she'd probably put a fat frog somewhere in here. Probably sitting right in his hand or something. A very round frog with far apart eyes. I could do black outline, or I could continue making little French knots around his halo with the gold. I think I got that out somewhere over here. There it is. Now the gold, since this is not really regular embroidery floss, it's very stiff and kind of rough. It's not, I don't know what this material is, but it's definitely synthetic. And this stuff is easily separated and tangled. And since it's not a smooth fiber, it can get caught in the fabric and like tear its own finish off. So sometimes if you're sewing with this a lot and you're going in and out over and over again with your needle and you're stitching around like this, eventually some of the gold will start to rub off of whatever is inside of this, probably some sort of plastic, and it'll start turning white because all the stuff is peeled off. So that's why I don't use the gold as much for a lot, because you can see I've only done like a couple. I've done some French knots and just simple lining around the halo, but I limit it to thin lines and small dots. Otherwise, it just rubs off. I'm excited for the new year. Been thinking about that today. It's going to be the first year that I'm not doing the little countdown with my family. I'm not used to being in the house most of the day on my own. My friend Lily will probably come back over and spend the nights with me. She's busy during the days. Now I'm using all 6 strands. Actually, I should probably do only 3. I'm going to separate this. It should have 6 strands, but I'm going to separate it into 3 and very slowly pull it apart or else it'll get tangled. And this, when it gets tangled, is worse than anything. Because like I said, it's not a smooth fiber and it will snag and tear itself. It's not an easy thing to work with, but it looks really good when it's done. It's very perfect. Looks like here I used some silver thread. Some of this stuff I started a long time ago that I don't remember working on, but I'm pretty much just picking up where I left off. I've been rearranging the prints and the paintings in my room on my wall, and I decided I should probably finish this so I can put it up because I made some new space. I adjusted everything to make room for my print from our friend Edwin that's of a creature, and his name, it just says handsome on it. And that's probably one of my favorite drawings he's ever done. All right. So now that I have this gold strung up on my needle and with a big knot on it, I'm going to come from under here, my needle, a good distance, an even distance from the other French knot. It looks like it's kind of loose. And I'm probably first going to come through and immediately do a little stitch right here just to secure the knot. And just a tiny little stitch next to it, just like this. I wish I could zoom in, but I can't. And if I were to pull it closer, then I'd be like supporting it all weird, be shaky. It's just terrible. I can prop it up like this. So I have just a tiny stitch right there. I'm going to put my needle underneath the thread. I'm going to wrap it 2 times. And then holding my string, I'm going to put it in next to where I put that tiny stitch. And the only reason I put that tiny stitch there was to hold the knot in place that I put initially just now. Now, holding that thread with my needle pulling through, I'm going to do it gently and slowly. Otherwise, you might pull your French knot through the hole that you're poking through. And then while holding your thread, you slowly pull it closed. And that's what it looks like. And then you can move to the next one. And this time I don't need to put a second stitch because I don't have a knot to hold in place. So I'm just going to keep going until I get to probably right here because I don't want it to squish towards the border of the halo. And I'll probably pick it up again right here so it looks, consistent. You do 2 wraps and then insert it pretty close to the hole that you came out of. Out of all of the embroidery stitches, I would say that my favorites are definitely the French knots and the bouillon stitch. Both look really good and both are really, really easy to mess up and make it look sloppy. And they're hard to undo, too. If you're to make like a messed up bouillon stitch or messed up French knot, at that point you might as well just cut it because you're not gonna be able to undo, take your needle off and then pull the stitches out. It's a knot now. It's not going to come out. So wrap it twice, put it in there, and that's probably the last French knot that I'm going to do on this side. Now you probably have noticed by now that with all of this pulling through itself, the fibers are starting to get tangled, which is just how this works because it is not smooth at all. Okay, flip it. This is what the back side of my embroideries look like. Lots of knots. Some of the paint bleeding through. Now I'm just going to tie a simple knot right here. I'm going to go through my most previous stitch, go underneath it, pull it tight, twist the loop, and put my needle through it. And that makes for a pretty good and sturdy knot to finish something off. I have my cute little thread snippers my mom got me. Make a new knot. And now I'm going to work the other side of the halo. Yeah, with the thread pulling through this needle hole, it's like slowly working itself raw and getting like... Kalite says, continuing into the black can add another dimension. You're probably right. It might make it look like it's popping out just a little bit. But see, I feel like I would have to continue it here too. Because if his halo was just popping out, just the gold stitches, they're the gold knots up through here, I feel like it would look a little bit sloppy if I didn't have him have something else continuing down here, like his shoulder or maybe the guitar. So I would like to have some consistency in the bottom of it. But I might do that. We'll see what happens with it. It's been a long time since I designed this. I could actually right now show the initial sketch that I did on my iPad for this drawing. I have it right here. Here it is. This was the original drawing I just did in black and white on Procreate. And this is why I don't do the freaking digital demos, because you can see me in the reflection. You can see the lights that are I could turn them off, but you could still see a glare. So yeah, I just sketched everything out. And then I had this printed. And then I took this sheet, because I picked the canvas size to be 8.5 by 11. And then I printed it out and I used the light box to trace the design onto the linen. And now we have this. It's going to be perfect. This measures from here to here, and from just above the top of the black to just below the bottom, it measures 8.5 by 11, which is perfect because I have 8.5 by 11 frames already in my room. It's awesome. I love it when things line up like that. Maybe if I can figure out in the future how to do screen recording or screen sharing with my iPad to my phone, or on StreamYard without messing up the audio, then I can show off how I design some of my embroideries. I've never sketched them out in my sketchbook first. I always design them digitally. I was going to do some lining, but I couldn't really figure out where to line next. I could do a black flower or something like that. Maybe I can add to these branches, because these are very easy to do. This is just back stitching over on top of itself, making just branches. I got this frame off of Amazon, by the way, if anybody's wondering. I used to work on a great big, wide, round frame for my drawings, but then I found that the round creases did not suit the square design that I had. So I would have to sometimes trim the fabric and stretch it over my cardboard in such a way where you could not see the round lines of the frame on the edges when I framed it. And a couple of my embroideries in my room before I got this big square frame or rectangle frame, you can see the weird brown lines of where it was where it was creased. Kalita says, thanks for sharing your creative process and technique, Azalea. Thank you. I haven't done this in a long time. I used to make embroideries like one every couple of months, but it's been a while since I finished one. They're fun though. They're easy to zone out while you're doing. I've loved fiber arts because you can really just zone out while you're doing it, unless you're doing like a complicated stitch. You can't zone out while you're doing a bouillon stitch like that. You have to pay close attention with the wrapping. You have to make sure not to snag your fabric or break any fibers, or make a knot out of it, because it's so easy to do a bouillon stitch and then make a knot that you just have to cut that out at that point. You can't undo that. No matter like how long you mess with it, you're done. It's so tangled. But yeah, with this black, I just have some 3 strands, and I'm just doing kind of a back stitch. This frame is good though because I can feel that this is feeling kind of loose. It's not as tight like a drum like it should be. So you can turn the knobs on the top and the bottom, or the left and right side, and then you can gently, like, it rotates, so you can pull it tight and turn it a little bit, and then tighten that knob on the side. Now it's a little tighter. It's a little better. I don't want to stretch it too much because I want it to be able to fit into my frame, because I have learned that when you stretch it super hard, it does not, it bounces back a little bit once you take it off of the frame, but not by much. So stretching the paint can make it weird afterwards. So I have to be careful with that. That's the only downside of it. But yeah, this frame is off of Amazon. I just took a big piece of fabric, and it has these rolling clip type things, and that holds it in place pretty well. I wouldn't say that it's great for traveling since it's so big, but I do a lot of bigger embroidery work rather than a small itty bitty frame that you can just put in your purse. I like something that you can walk in my room and see first thing. I have been thinking for a long time about getting an even bigger frame, or filling this up completely and doing a tapestry type of design, like from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, from here to here, and just doing a massive design, probably with magical creatures and the Raven King himself sitting on a throne in the middle. I might even try to replicate the one from the book, which probably will make me the biggest fan of that book, and I would love to have that title because I've listened to it twice, and I've read the whole book, and I've seen the show however many times. I've been obsessed. I'm not even gonna lie, that's obsession. But it's cool. It's a bit niche. There's no fandom for it, no fangirls on the internet, so I like that story. Here I am just adding extra little branches in here. I only do long solid stitches that are maybe half a centimeter long at the most. I'm not going to do this stretch of a branch right here is probably 5 stitches put together just very smoothly. It's like a split stitch, not really a back stitch as much as a split stitch, because a back stitch you'll see the holes in between like this. If I put my needle up through here, I put it for a split stitch. I'll show a little closer. I would put the needle back in through this previous stitch right here. A back stitch would have you putting it in this hole, but then then that hole is getting stretched out and you'll be able to see it. If you do back stitch or a split stitch right here, then it makes it kind of a more smooth transition. My mom said it's probably because Weasel and I listened to that while I was pregnant with you. That adds up. That definitely adds up. Makes sense, because I love that story so hard. It's so perfect. It's a perfect book. I love it. I love the show. I think they did a great job with the show, but I love the book because there are, I think, 125 footnotes, and almost all of the footnotes are a different fairy tale story that is from like 100 years before the main story is taking place. And a lot of them are about the Raven King and some of the shenanigans that he got up to. And he's my favorite, most mysterious character I've ever seen. So I was obsessed with it. I listened to that. Well, the last time I listened to that book on tape was probably last January. Now I'm just adding more branches. And now I think I might turn this into like some sort of blueberry bush instead of it being a barren black tree. I might add some little blue French knots to it. That might be cute. I think that's wide enough, or I think that's enough branches. So now I'm going to finish it off and switch to a different color to do the berries. Either blueberries or some other kind of color. Maybe I could do some variegated floss to make like rainbow berries. My mom would choose that. She's always going to choose rainbow. Okay, I just did that same knot that I made a loop, and instead of just putting the needle through the loop, I twisted the loop and then pulled it through. And I find that makes a more sturdy knot. I don't know why. That's just from my years of practicing my sewing. Then I just cut that off, and it should be good. I've never had an embroidery stitch, or I've never had an embroidery knot come out while I was working on it. And when I finish these, I spray adhesive on the back, or not on directly on the back of the thing, but on a piece of cardboard. I let it sit for a minute so it's not too wet, and then I lay this out and stretch it over the sides and glue it to a board. So those knots are sealed in forever. And I don't know, my embroideries that I have lasted a good long time. Pat says, love the black branches. Could add natural coral too. I might do that. That's a good idea. I always have some sort of gothic element in all of my embroideries. Probably not even intentionally. I always have some like sprawling black branches, or like kind of a like blood red roses coming out of his eyes. And most of my embroideries, I have like a branch coming out of somebody's mouth. It's a little morbid, but I think it looks awesome. We can look now at some of the variegated thread I have in my collection here. That would be like this. It's like a teal. I have this. It's kind of a purple, and it fades into a black, like a lavender gray and black. This one's just yellow. I like that one a lot. I avoid this one because it's yellow and purple. It's a bizarre mix. This kind of looks a lot like, very close to this teal, but it's a little more green. Hi, Jermaine. It's nice to hear from you guys. Thank you guys for joining me tonight while I'm just showing some stuff off, just some embroidery. Yeah, these are my different colors. Which one do you guys think I should use to put berries on these branches? I have all these different ones. I'm not going to use that because I don't like that one. I've tried it before. That's why it looks like it's been used, and I did not love it. So we're going to do a different one. So far, I'm thinking like this. I like how spooky that looks. It would fit in with the branches, but probably some of these spots it would blend in too. So I'll probably pick maybe this one. I don't use this one this often, and I did say blueberries, but it does fade into a really, really light pale blue there. I love variegated yarn and thread. Working with it is just so satisfying. See, it goes from a very pale blue into this navy. Mary says, I like your idea of using blue. All right, blue it is then. It's a good idea. It does look good with French knots if you do like clusters of French knots and you have them all next to each other, and you start with the dark color maybe at the base, and then you slowly move up, just doing French knots from here and just moving up as close as you can to each other so you don't have any like long jumping stitches on the back of your thing. Just conserving thread and keeping it consistent with the color. Because if you have a lot of big stitches on the back, that's pieces of the color gradient that are now just on the back. And then so you jump, when you look at the stitches, you jump from this to this. So that's why I try to keep the clusters as close together as possible. Jermaine says, I would do blue or teal. I like this blue. I don't remember using this in my other embroideries that often. And I have used the teal pretty recently. So I think it will be this blueberry blue here. I recently made in crochet a bag for my friend, a little pouch, and I used I think it was some sort of shell stitch where you put like 5 double crochet stitches into one stitch, and so it makes kind of an arch. And then you go through on your second round or on the next round with a different color thread, and you go and you loop up a bunch, and you basically gather the whole thing, so it makes a little pucker. And it looks like blueberries because I used green for the branch tops, and then I used blue for my little shell pieces, and they looked really good. I left that pouch upstairs though, and I don't feel like going and getting it. The house mostly has been very, very quiet. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this thread right here, right after the color goes from this light back into the blue, so I can start with the dark blue and end with this. And I will probably split this into 2 strands of the 3-ply. Cut that there right before the color shifts again, and then we're going to separate it like I did with the gold one. Jermaine says, I would love to see the pouch sometime. I could probably show it soon. I made it for my friend, but I haven't seen her in a couple days, so I haven't had the chance to give it to her because I just now, the other day, finished making the lining for the pouch and putting a zipper on it. So we're going to very slowly and carefully separate these. This is not something you want to try to do fast because you see how it already wants to make a knot. That is really difficult to undo, especially when you have just very thin pieces, because it will sooner break than separate and unknot. So you want to keep this part straight because it's going to want to coil up, and this is how I do it. I hold it like this, and I pull it just apart very gently. And then you don't have any knots. Stretch it out, and we can use it in a minute. I could probably get my little pouch from the studio if everybody wants to see it, but I don't want to leave for too long. I'm going to go ahead and take this color off and thread this through. I'll probably bring some sort of embroidery project with me to Tucson, whether we fly or drive there, because that's what I did the first time we went. I brought my Robert's Garden embroidery with me, and I worked on it the entire time I was there and finished the embroidery on the last day, like the day that we left. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to start right here on this branch, and I'm going to probably try to do 2 or 3 French knots per little stick, just for right here. It doesn't have to be as dense throughout the whole thing, but I'm going to start here, and like I did before, since that knot is right there and I don't want that to come out, I'm just going to do a tiny little stitch just next to it, as tiny and close to it as I can, so you can't see it when it's done. And that way, when you pull it, it doesn't pull your knot out. That was a funny sound. Oh, I totally didn't even realize I didn't have this light on the whole time. Yo, perfect. Okay, that looks good. New light. All right. A French knot is kind of hard to do with one hand, so I'm going to do it from down here. Just like we were doing with the gold ones. I'm just going to put my needle underneath the thread. I'm going to wrap it over 2, maybe even 3 times, and then plant my needle again back through where my thread is coming out, like right next to it. Just a couple spots over. And then hold the thread in place while you pull that loop shut. And then it makes a perfect little French knot. And then I'm going to put my needle up again right next to it to make the one closest, to make my little blueberry clusters. Wrap it around, plant it in there, and pull it through. And these little clusters of French knots look so satisfying when you have a bunch of them done and you have a bunch of them close together because they have such a good texture. Now I'm going to do the final one. And plant it in right here in the center so it can make kind of a triangle shape, like a perfect cluster. You don't see any white underneath it, or barely any at all. And there you go. It's a little blueberry cluster. Looks perfect to me. Very cute. And that's satisfying because it'll be a cluster here, and the next one will be a little lighter, and the next one will be even a little lighter, and it's going to look awesome when it's done. And that's why I love doing these embroideries so much, is because you can add so much detail in there that from a distance it just looks like a colorful painting or just some sort of colorful tapestry. But then if you get closer, you can see the variegation of the color in the roses. You can see the clusters of the French knots of the moss on his ear. I'm going to paint in this butterfly here. I have these vines. I might put little, like, I was thinking, hear me out, this is going to look epic. I'm going to find some tiny little, like, red seed beads that are kind of see-through and make little raspberries in here. Tiny itty bitty seed beads. So then when you look at them, you can see like maybe 3 or 4 seed beads in a cluster. It looks like a raspberry. I've been feeling nostalgic for the summertime lately, so a raspberry would be perfect here. Raspberries here, blueberries here, maybe some cornflowers coming out of his ear, or, coming up through here. I've been thinking about that little show that's based off of the book, the Redwall series. I love the artwork in that show. I love the tapestry that they, have at the center of everything. All right, next, I'm going to move on to this little bunch right here. And when I finish this bunch, I'm going to flip the camera back because my throat is starting to get so hoarse. And it's probably, usually I can talk for hours on end and talk anybody's ear off. But lately, I haven't been talking that much at all. Just a couple words every once in a while when I see my cats. But no, I haven't been talking much. So to be talking for 44 minutes straight or 45 minutes straight now, getting kind of hoarse. I'm not used to it. And I'm just continuing like I was with this branch or with this bundle. And you can see the color is slightly lighter than it was here because it's starting to move up that color shift. Doing lots of French knots reminds me of a project from a book that I used to use all the time called Sally Maber's Felt Wee Folk. And I used to look at that and make those little string dolls like crazy. In one of the projects, in one of her newer books, she was showing you how to make a Felt Wee Folk sheep. And the sheep had, like, the base of its coat was just a shape cut out of felt. But then you would cover the entire piece of felt with French knots. There were probably 200-300 French knots on that piece. It was crazy. I loved it, though. I wanted to make it, but I always thought that looked like too much work to do all those French knots. And that's why I started, like, needle felting all of my farm animals instead of making them the same way as I made my people. But, I never really did copy Sally Maver. I always did my own thing. I just used her method of making the doll bodies, pretty much. Sherry says it's turning out awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll probably work on this after I say goodnight. I'll probably put on a show and fill up this border with the silver. Maybe do some vines right here. But when I do tighten it around a piece of cardboard, this part's probably gonna disappear. So I'm gonna not do so much on this side of the border because you won't even be able to see it. It's a bit sloppy anyway. Sloppy painted black lines. Now just here in this bundle, you can see how the lower berries right here are really dark, and then it's slowly starting to lighten up right at that top one there. Sharon says, now I want to drag out all my embroidery thread. That would be super cool. I was thinking about setting up a Zoom thing where we could do jewelry making, but we could also do fiber arts. And it doesn't even matter what fiber art you want to do. It can be knitting, crochet, embroidery, little felt people. It can be making a necklace, like a knotted necklace, but like some sort of fiber art would be a really nice little project. A nice get together, I guess. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and plant my needle right here for now and set it aside. Probably flip the camera now, too. Oof. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I appreciate everybody showing up, even though my mom is not here and we're not doing a sale. I appreciate everybody sticking around and watching me embroider and sketch and show off my sketchbook. It's been fun. I miss doing these with my mom for sure because she does most of the talking, and now my throat hurts. But thank you guys for showing up, and I wish you all a happy new year. My mom had the idea that I would do some sort of countdown with everybody, but that would require being on at like midnight, and that is the time that I get very sleepy. So Jermaine says I'm gonna watch the replay to see what I missed, and not much. It's not much. Basically, what I did was show a couple paintings from my sketchbook and sketch for about 45 seconds on this page, my little dryad dude. And I'm thinking now I'm in the mood for it, and I might make a whole like foam mask and then make like foam clay horns to come up. It would be sick. I could use the Dremel tool to make like the wood texture, and then I could probably put some like LEDs in there to make the glowing eyes. I think I want to do that right now, and I probably could. So again, thank you guys for showing up. I will see you guys probably on Sunday, and my mom will be here. So I guess Happy New Year and good night.